Hey guys, I want to welcome you back to another episode on J of All Trades. Today I'm standing in the living room here and I'm going to be installing 8 flush mount ceiling lights on this ceiling here. And this is actually my mom's living room. And the first thing you'll notice about this ceiling is that it's a popcorn ceiling and it's got a textured finish to it, which really does well with absorbing sound, and it also hides a lot of drywall flaws. As you look over here on the right, you'll see the corner in which I'll start working. And keep in mind, this is a unique situation where we have an older house here. And this house has been built with no light on the ceiling. They actually utilize these outlets with a switch that actually controls the power to those outlets. And so we're gonna change that setup today, and we're gonna put in 8 recessed lights into this ceiling. And I'm gonna be showing you guys step by step how I'm going to do this project. And one important thing to point out is that there is no attic above this ceiling, and there's no access to run wiring except from the bottom of this ceiling. So that's gonna be our greatest challenge today. All right guys, so we're gonna be converting this outlet to have continuous power all the time. So it's gonna be functioning like a normal outlet. And we're gonna be repurposing this switch to control the overhead lights. Before we start this work, we want to make sure that the breaker that feeds this outlet is off. Now I can be able to open up this box for the switch and see exactly how it's wired up. As you can see, this is a very old switch and there's 2 wires that are coming here, so that's pretty straightforward. We're going to open up the bottom now and we're going to see exactly how it's wired up down here. After inspecting the wires here, I can see that the feed for the line, it goes through the switch first and then comes to this outlet. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna allow the line to go directly to this outlet, and we'll take a feed up to the switch from the line on the outlet. This way the outlet can have continuous power, and we'll also be able to send power up to the new lights with a switch that controls those lights. I will also be installing a smart switch which requires a neutral, so I'll also be taking a neutral feed from this side of the outlet straight up to the switch. And I don't have to run any extra wires because there's already 2 wires that go up. So 1 wire will be for the line and 1 will be used as a neutral. So here's the neutral wire that I'll be hooking up to the outlet from the breaker, and it's gonna come directly to this outlet here. Your neutral always goes to the silver screws, and on the other side, you'll notice that the screws are gold. So that's something to keep in mind. Now we'll hook up the line that's coming straight from the breaker to the outlet. This will allow the outlet to always have power. So it's no longer going to be controlled by a switch. These 2 remaining wires here, the black and white, are going to the switch. And so we're going to take a feed off of this line and it's going to be sent up to the switch. The great thing is the wires are already ran in the wall, so we don't have to run any wires here. We're just rewiring it differently. Now we're going to connect the white wire here to the neutral side, and this will send the neutral up to where the switch will be, because a smart switch that I'll be installing today will require a neutral. I like to tape everything with electrical tape just to have a safeguard. It's always a good idea to do this, especially when you have the sides exposed like this. Now I'm going to remove this old switch off of these wires here. I can even turn the breaker on and just check to see that my line has power coming up. And here as well, I can test to see that my outlet is having continuous power. Remember to turn your breaker off after testing, and then you can continue working. I'm going to need to run new wiring up here because there is no wiring that goes up to the ceiling. And in order to do that, I'll be cutting a piece of this crown molding and removing it out of the way so that I can pass my wiring straight into the ceiling. Once I have my wire ran here, I'm going to be using this piece of crown molding and putting it back into place. Now I'm going to drill a small hole here just to see what's behind the wall and to see what kind of clearance I have. In order for me to see behind the wall, I'll be using this test-long inspection camera. And this inspection camera features an articulating bore scope with dual lens. And it allows me to see around corners and whatever is inside the wall here. I'll include a link in the description if you guys would like to check it out. Here I can already see that there's a clear path to get to the box for the switch. Now I'm going to be using this snake here, and I'll feed it up until I get to the top where the hole is, and then I'll try to pull it right out so I can attach a piece of wire to it to feed it in. This process takes a little bit of finesse, but once you get it up there, you can slowly move the snake back and forth until it comes through. Now you can take the wire that you want to feed and tape it to the snake, and you'll pass it right down into the box. For this process, you don't want to force anything when you're feeding the wire through. You'll just want to slowly feed it in and then move the snake down along with the wiring. If you feel a lot of resistance, try not to force it. It may be snagged on something. But in my case, it all went smoothly and I was able to get the wire through. Now you can untape it from the snake and you'll be all set to go on this end to wire up your switch. Here I noticed that the ground wire was cut short. Apparently the person that wired up the last switch didn't think that the ground was needed. But here I extended the ground by connecting a short piece of grounding wire and secured it to the existing ground back there. And it's all secured back there now, so I have a ground that I can use for my switch. Here is the single pole smart switch that I'll be using today. It's made by Kasa, and I'll include a link in the description for you guys. And in here, this is what comes in the box. It comes with some wire nuts. And of course, you've got the switch itself and the cover. Here is the cover, and it's nice, flat, and sleek. Here is the smart switch, which has a ground, a line, and a neutral. Keep in mind that this is a dimmer version of this switch, so we'll be able to dim our lights with the switch. They do have others that do not dim. So just pay attention to that if you're going to go out and get one. Another thing to be aware of is that this has a load side where the lights have to be connected going out to the light. And here is your line side that is coming from the breaker. That is very important. You cannot switch them around. Otherwise, your switch will not work. So this red screw here is our load side. So we're going to connect the lights to this load side to go straight into this side of the switch. Here is the line side, and we'll be taking that line feed from the outlet and we'll connect it on the line side of the switch. Now we'll connect all the ground wires together. And this is a ground wire for the switch, the ground wire that's coming from the outlet, and also the ground wire going to the lights. So we got 3 wires here that are ground. And of course, I like putting electrical tape as extra insurance. Now I'll connect the neutral wire for the switch to the neutral that's coming from the outlet, and also the neutral for the lights. Now we have power feeding to the switch, and we also have power going up to the lights, and this switch is all wired up with its neutral as well. The cover for this switch just snaps right on. Here I tried to make a hole to see if I can use the camera, but there's a stud right there. So I'm gonna make a second hole right nearby so I could get past the stud so I could take a look inside of the ceiling. And this will help me to see the direction of the joist and to see exactly where the first joist begins. Here is a hole saw for recessed lights. And this also comes with a dust bowl catcher, which is great for dust control. And this is a 4¼ inch hole cutter. I'm gonna include a link in the description for you guys if you'd like to go out there and get this. The great thing about this is that it always makes the perfect hole at the perfect size for your recessed lighting. And you can see also that the dust catcher does a great job of catching that dust. You can choose to leave this piece up there, or you can remove it if you'd like. Here's all the dust that would have probably fell right in my face, but instead it's in this dust catcher here. You can toss the dust out and continue going. Here I'm gonna make a couple openings just to find the first 2 joists in the path. And this will help me to determine the best path to take this wire to the first light fixture. And there is the second joist. So I'll open up a little bit closer to where the first joist is, and then we'll be able to work from there. Now I have part of the first 2 joists open. And here I'm gonna be using 1.5 by 2 inch 16 gauge nail protection plate shields. And these plates are for wood studs. I'll include a link in the description, so if you guys need to pick some of these up, you can go out there and pick it up. Now it's time to cut a clear path for this wiring, and I'm gonna be opening up some of the ceiling and some of the wall here, just to get this wiring to make a 90° to get into the ceiling. Here I'm using a hammer and a chisel just to notch out a little piece into the wood so that the wire can sit flush into the wood. Now it's time for the most challenging part of this entire project. We're gonna need to run wiring to all of these lights, and we need to get past each joist. And there's a joist every 12 inches. So in order to get the wiring to each light, I'm gonna be notching the bottom of the joist, which is generally discouraged because it can reduce the structural strength. But the size of notches that I'll be making today will not significantly reduce that strength. However, we can still do this as long as we follow the code restrictions or the IRC restrictions, which allows notches in the outer thirds of the span limited to 1/6 of the joist depth and 1/3 of the joist depth in length, while end notches cannot exceed 1/4 of the depth. Our notch sizes are nowhere near that. I know that sounds confusing, so I'm gonna link a video in the description that clearly explains what's allowed and what's not allowed in the code. Here I'm just feeding the first length of wire through to make that 90° angle here, and I'll be using these plates to shield my wiring that's sitting inside of the wall and stud. Please keep in mind that although these shields are covering the wire, there will also be crown molding also serving as a little form of protection against the wiring back here. Here I'm putting the last plate straight into the stud. Another great thing about these plates is that you can drive screws into them to secure the plates into studs. Now I can install the crown molding right over the plates. And we've managed to get wiring into our ceiling so we can get it to the first light fixture. Here is a low profile recessed lighting fixture that I'll be using. I'll include a link in the description so you guys can go out there and check these lights out if you'd like. If you need to change a light fixture, you can simply screw it out, take it out, and then put another one in. And you simply just line it up with the notch there, and you can screw this right back on. And here is the box with all your wiring in there. It's just your line, your neutral, and your ground. And also inside of the box is located a little switch, and this switch allows you to choose between 5 different temperatures. Here I'm using a box to draw a rectangle, which is the perfect size for my protective plates. And I'll be putting those plates over the joists once I put my notches in the joist. I'll also be saving these pieces of sheetrock because they're gonna go right back in place, and I'll put them in the order in which I took them out. Once I have my joists exposed, I'll be using a chisel and a hammer just to make a little notch so that the wire can sit flush inside of the joist. Now I can feed my wire straight through the ceiling, and I'll be placing my wires to sit inside of the notches that I made on the joist. Again, you want to check with the codes to make sure that in your area you can do this. And keep in mind that I am going to be putting protective metal plates right under these joists once this wire is ran here. This process is a little tedious because you have to keep feeding the wire all the way through. And of course, it doesn't help that the joists are 12 inches apart. But once you get the wiring through, the hard part is done. Once the wires are sitting inside of the notches, you can go ahead and put your plates over the wire to protect it in the joist. You can also cut the wire to length. And here I'm putting the pieces back right over the plate, and I'm simply using a brad nailer to just hold these pieces in place, and then I'll be plastering at the end. Here's how the ceiling looks after I ran that length of wiring there from the first fixture over to the second. And now I have to continue with the same method until I get the full length over to the next light fixture. The other fixtures that are running parallel to this only had one blocking in between, so all I had to do was get past that particular blocking, and I was able to run the wire straight under there and over to the next fixture. Again, feeding the wire over was not too difficult, and I was able to just walk it right over there and then measure everything out, feed the wire right over again, and then let the wire sit inside of the notch. And of course, placing a protective plate right over the wire. Now it's time to wire up the light fixtures. Now that the wiring is ran, here I'm just simply using wire nuts to secure these wires together. And of course, black to black, white to white, and then you have your ground. Once you have all your wire nuts tightened up, you can simply push everything inside of the box and close up the box, and the box sits right inside of the ceiling. It's getting darker in this room because the sun is going down, but I have a good feeling this room will get brighter very soon. Once you get all your light fixtures wired up, you can turn your breaker on and turn your switch on, and you can enjoy your recessed lighting. And everything is looking nice and bright. These lights provide a nice even distribution. All right guys, so this concludes this project for this living room. And as you can see, I have pretty much all the furniture back in place, and all 8 lights are all installed with all the wiring ran here. And we solved a major challenge just getting that wiring past the joists. So we're gonna plaster up all these cuts here that we've made, and we're gonna sand and we're gonna paint the entire ceiling, and everything will be all set to go. I wanna thank each and every one of you for joining me today on this project. Please remember to like and subscribe to my channel so you can continue to get more videos like this one. And I'll see you guys on the next one.